Hi, everybody. I hope you are doing well. It's been a while. I am so excited to start our first lesson in the third trimester, and I hope you are excited as well. I know that remote learning doesn't really help you, but I really hope that you are trying as hard as you can to keep track of your learning to finish what remains of the program. So, as you can see, today we are going to study writing skills. We will learn how to paraphrase. If you do remember from the last time we studied summarizing, how to summarize, and if you remember, it's a little bit complex because summarizing involves different strategies. It's a highly complex skill. Paraphrasing is exactly the same thing. So this is what we're gonna study today. This is the outline of our lesson. First of all, we will see what is paraphrasing, why is it important, and then we will move to the steps that you can follow to paraphrase your text or whatever you have to paraphrase. And we will see the main techniques that you can involve to paraphrase. Then we will go over some examples of paraphrasing techniques. And at the end, we will see the pitfalls of paraphrasing or the traps that you have to avoid in order to paraphrase correctly. And the last thing we will see is how to know your text is well paraphrased. So what is paraphrasing? According to the Merriam-Webster online dictionary, paraphrasing is defined as a restatement of a text, passage, or work, giving the meaning in another form. So what does this mean? To paraphrase is to rewrite something using different words without changing the original meaning. This is what is usually meant by the phrase in your own words. Actually, the paraphrase should be clear and more easily understood than the original one. I mean the original text, and it is often about the same length. So for example, if the original text is about 6 lines, your paraphrase should be exactly the same length. Paraphrasing is important in so many ways. First of all, it increases your knowledge and understanding of the subject. When you read a book or you read something that relates to your subjects, you can't actually remember the actual words unless you paraphrase them, unless you put them in your own words, in your own style. Second thing is that paraphrasing is an important research skill. It's something that you definitely gonna need in the future. Now you are students, and sooner than you think, you will be required to undertake research. So this is something you're gonna need in addition to summarizing skills. Number 3, it allows you to represent the ideas of others and demonstrate how your own ideas relate to and build on the ideas of other people or other scholars. It really helps you succinctly compare, contrast, synthesize, summarize the ideas of others. Number 4, it helps you avoid inadvertent plagiarism. And I think you all know what plagiarism means. It's when you take the work or the words of someone and you present them as your own work with or without his approval. For example, your teacher gave you a project and you were required to write about 10 pages. So maybe probably you didn't have time or you lacked the skill to undertake the research project. So you just went to Google and you looked for some articles and you copy, paste, and you brought the research to the teacher. That is actually plagiarism. So I want you to look at this picture. So you might go like, well, we all know how to paraphrase. Well, actually, yeah, but what I want to say is that it's hard. It's really harder than you think. Paraphrasing is just like summarizing. It's actually harder than summarizing. It's a complex process that requires advanced grammar skills, and a large vocabulary in order to effectively restate information. The most difficult part when it comes to paraphrasing is that the vocabulary. So if you know a lot of vocabulary and you have a great understanding of grammar, I don't think you will have a problem. But if you lack vocabulary, you will definitely suffer. Now, take a look at this table. Try to pause the video and answer this question. What have changed in the sentences? Now, let's take a look at the sentences. We have two sentences. The first one, the dog wanted to find some food to eat. The second one, our neighbor met a little sick cat on the road while he was going to work. Now, let's look at the paraphrase versions. The first sentence, this pet went looking for something to eat. The second paraphrased version, on his way to work, the person who lives next to us found an ill cat. All right, now I want you to take time out and try to compare the two sentences, the original sentences and the paraphrased versions of sentences, and try to find out the things that have changed in the two versions, from the original sentences to the paraphrased versions of sentences. So try to think about this. Take some time and think about it. So basically, when you paraphrase, you change the words, you change the structure, you change the punctuation, you try to express the meaning in your own voice, in your own words, using different structures without changing the meaning. This is the most important part of paraphrasing. You don't have to change the meaning, otherwise it is not paraphrasing. For example, take the first sentence. We have the dog, we have pet, we have find, we have look for, we have something, we have food. The second sentence, we have neighbor, we have the person next to us, we have sick, we have ill, we have way, we have road, we have found, we have met, we have also change on the level of the structure. We have a clause in the first sentence, as you can see, while he was going to work. The second sentence, we have just a phrase, on his way to work. So you can see a lot of changes there. You might have noticed that I used short sentences and phrases. Actually, I did that because I just want you to understand what we actually do when we paraphrase. Our major goal is learning how to paraphrase paragraphs, texts. And it's a little bit hard because a text is a little bit long and you might be lost somewhere. So it takes a lot of practice. But basically, there are several steps that you have to follow when you paraphrase. Number one, read the text carefully. You have to read the text twice, 3 times, 4 times. You have to understand the text. It's very important. Try to underline, note any keyword in the text. Number 2, look at the words and the structure of the text. It's very important to know the words in the text. Are they verbs? Are they adjectives? Are they nouns? How many nouns do I have in the text? How many adjectives do I have? It's called the word class. And then look at the structure of the text. Look at the types of sentences. That's what I mean by the structure. Do I have simple sentences, complex sentences, compound complex sentences? And then number 3, use your memory. Write down the main ideas and concepts. Do not copy from the text literally. Don't copy word by word. So just put the text apart and try to remember all the ideas in the text and write them in your own style. Number 4, try to find different ways and strategies to express the information that you wrote down. And this is what we're going to see in the next slide. It's about techniques. Number 5, revise what you have written. So when you write a tentative paraphrase, you have to go over it again and again to make sure that it's well written. The last step, do not forget to use an in-text reference at the start or end of your paraphrase. What I mean by this is, for example, when you have a text, there will be an author or a writer somewhere, so you have to put it with the paraphrase. Like, for example, Dalen William, 2008, between brackets. This is an example of an in-text citation. I already mentioned this in the classroom. In case you don't have a reference or an in-text citation, you don't have to mention it, but it is very important. If you have a text to paraphrase and you have the author, you have to mention it. Here we have an example of a short paragraph paraphrased, the source text or source material. So actually at this point I want you to pause the video and read the three texts. So the first one is the source text, and then below we have inappropriate paraphrase, which means that there are some problems, there are some pitfalls out there. It's not well paraphrased. And at the end we have appropriate paraphrase. So I want you to pause and read the three texts and answer this question: what makes the second version inappropriate, and what makes the third version appropriate paraphrase? So take some time and answer this question. So you might have found out that the inappropriate paraphrase is too close to the original sentence. There are several words the same, and the complex structure of the sentence is the same as well. Deleting some words from the original sentence is not enough to write an appropriate paraphrase, and that is the problem with the first paraphrase. Concerning the second paraphrase, the second version, which is appropriate, it uses different structures for the sentences, and most of the words are different from the original. So as you can see here, we have some techniques, paraphrasing techniques. So the first one is acknowledging sources. You got to acknowledge the source. I already mentioned this. When you have a short paragraph and you have the author or the writer, you have to mention it in the paraphrase. If not, if you don't have it, it's fine. The second one is changing vocabulary, synonyms, the words with the same meaning, and the keywords. So we will see examples of these techniques, all right, in the next slides. Number 3, varied sentence patterns. So here you can try manipulating the sentences. For example, simple sentences, put them into paraphrase them, all right, put them in other words. If you have complex sentences, you can switch the clauses. You can put them into if you have an active voice, you can put it into a passive voice. You can for example, put a sentence into the gerund. I give you an example. To play football is great. Playing football is amazing. So the first sentence is infinitive, and the second one is gerund. Number 4 is change the order of ideas. For example, something like she didn't go to school because she was sick. So you can put it this way: she was ill, so she didn't go to school. Something like this. You can just change the order of ideas using different linking words. Change word class: nouns to verbs, verbs to nouns, adjectives to adverbs, adverbs to adjectives. Break long sentences into short ones. So it depends on your understanding of the text, and it depends on the length of the text. So sometimes you will have to make long sentences shorter. The last one is making abstract ideas more concrete by providing an example or a clarification to the phrase or the sentence or to the idea. Words from the text, we can use sentence patterns. We can just switch sentences using different modes. We can rely on word order. We can use word class techniques, which means changing words into different grammatical categories, nouns into verbs or adjectives or whatever. Basically, you can't use only one strategy. Paraphrasing is a combination of these strategies, so you have to pay attention to all of them when you paraphrase. As you can see in this slide, I have several verbs and expressions that you can use when you paraphrase. You know all of them, and I think so. Uh, at the top, for example, we have verbs and expressions that are neutral in meaning. You can use according to, acknowledge, according to the author of the text. Something is the author describes, the author discusses the importance of something like this. Next, we have verbs that indicate the author's position when the author is arguing about something. You can use the verb argue. Challenge, the author of the text challenges the assumption that says, or the author of the text emphasizes the role of internet in social life. The author really suggests that we should. Next, we have verbs that indicate what the author think about. What the author thinks about. So you can see verbs. The author of the text thinks, that, recognizes, consider something an important tool. Next, we have verbs that indicate that the author is showing something. For example, if the author is explaining or just showing how something is done, you can use verbs like demonstrate, explain, indicate, illustrate. Next, we have the verbs that indicate that the author is proving something, like a theory or hypothesis. The author of the article confirms that the study is valid in terms of the evidence provided, confirms, establish, substantiate. So all these verbs can be used, to introduce your paraphrased version in your in paraphrasing the text. Verbs that indicate what the author did. So we have verbs like, they actually describe a process, kind of, so analyze, apply, estimate, evaluate, find, and so on and so forth. 8 pitfalls of paraphrasing. So here we talk about the traps or the things that you have to avoid in order to paraphrase correctly. Number 1, don't forget to acknowledge the author. If you have a text, mention the source or the author. If you have a text with an in-text citation, try to keep the citation in the paraphrase version. Number 2, misreading the original text. This largely depends on your proficiency and your knowledge of English. If you have a low proficiency in English, you will definitely experience some problems and challenges in paraphrasing the original text, because you will not be able to understand some of the words and you will resort to dictionary. Number 3, including too much of the original. One of the problems that a lot of people make when paraphrasing is they don't know how much words and phrases they should keep when they paraphrase or summarize. So it's up to you as a person who is going to paraphrase to decide. But the most important thing, you have to change almost everything. Don't change the meaning. Change the structure, change the form, but keep the meaning. Number 4, or leaving important information out. You gotta understand that paraphrasing is not like summarizing. You have to keep most of the information in the text because the length the length of the two versions is approximately the same thing. So make sure you don't exclude ideas which might affect your meaning later. Number five, adding your opinion. In paraphrasing, you never add your opinion. So just remember that. Number six, summarizing rather than paraphrasing. Um, you already know the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing. In summarizing, you reduce the length of the text and make it shorter. Paraphrasing, you keep the same length, you keep the meaning, you change the form of the words and the sentences. Number seven, replacing inappropriate synonyms, which means that you are trying to paraphrase, you underline the words, so you want to replace them with synonyms. But the problem is that the words don't match. The synonyms don't match the original words. So make sure that the synonyms that you put in the paraphrased version don't change the meaning. And the last one is expanding or narrowing the meaning. This is very important. You have to keep track of the meaning of the text. Don't bring words or don't remove words that affect the meaning of the text. So when paraphrasing correctly, it is not enough to just change one or even a few words, to delete a few words, to change the punctuation, to reorder or rearrange the phrases in a sentence, or rearrange the sentences in a paragraph. Paraphrasing is more than that. So paraphrasing is changing everything in the text without changing the meaning. What you basically do, you change the form of words, the form of phrases, the form of clauses and sentences. Paraphrasing is about understanding the text and the passage at hand. Paraphrasing is about internalizing, which means deeply understanding the text and the ideas in the text. And it is about restating and re-expressing the words and the meaning, the most important points in your own voice, in your own way, in your own style as a writer. So here is a rubric for self-assessing your paraphrase. When you paraphrase a text, how can you make sure that what you did is well paraphrased, is well written? At the beginning, it's hard because you are learning as a student how to paraphrase. But as you go on, as you practice, you will understand how you evaluate and assess your own work. So this is a rubric that you can use to self-evaluate your product. First criterion is the meaning is the same. The most important part of paraphrasing is the meaning. So you have to keep track of the meaning. Never lose the meaning. Number two, most of the words have been changed. Use synonyms, use antonyms. Number three, the sentences have been restructured. Restructure the phrases and the clauses. Number four, the length. So your paraphrased version should be approximately the same as the original version. Number five, the information is correctly referenced. If there is an author reference or an in-text citation, mention it. Number six, your own words and style are being used. That's what paraphrasing is about. And the last one is no new ideas, including your opinion, are being added to the paraphrased text. So we mentioned this before. So here we have some keywords of the lesson that you have to understand. So I think some of you already know them. We have synonyms, we have antonyms, we have word class like noun, adjective, adverb, verb. We have sentence pattern, a simple sentence, complex, compound. These are the things that we have seen before. Word order, uh, subject, verb, object, sentence, subject, verb, subject, complement, subject, verb, adverbial sentence. So just check the examples. We have she ate the apple, she subject, ate verb, the apple. She ate what? The apple. That's an object, مفعول به. She is intelligent, subject, verb, intelligent. It's not an object, it's a subject complement. It's a word that completes the subject, right? It refers back to the subject she. She is intelligent. She reads quickly. So subject, verb, and adverbial. Quickly is an adverbial because it's an adverb describing the action, which is reading. She describes how she reads. She reads how? Quickly.